Check 1 2, check 1 2. Welcome back to the Stadium Pulse, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tegan Randolph, your host for all things college football, 365, 52 weeks out of the year. Let's not start the show off with a little bit of a stutter. Let's start the show off with some energy. Let's start the show off with a little bit of hype. We've had some college football news to actually talk about, which is the Joey Aguilar eligibility conversation, which, to be frank, I've grown tiresome of the eligibility conversation, whether or not this player should get another year of eligibility. I think it was a bit different with Trinidad. It was a bit different with Trinidad Shambles, and we'll talk about that at the midpoint of today's show. But let's not get too derailed here. Let's talk about what we are going to be looking at for today's show. First things first, we'll talk about the 24-team playoff. I haven't really spoken about that. We'll also be talking about a little bit of a panic meter, where we're going to get a little panic meter. Should you, as a fan base of one of these teams, actually be a little panicked, be a little, worried? I think if you're hitting the panic meter, you're a little bit past worried. But nonetheless, thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch today's show. If it is your first time seeing this lovely mustache, this Seahawks hat, this Seahawks pennant, almost knocked something off, stick around. Give the show an opportunity. It's going to be a little chaotic per usual, but it will be college football, and it will only be college football around here. So if you want to give the show an opportunity, a subscribe is your best way to show that. It would mean the world if you gave the show an opportunity. It's free. You get free college football content. Simple sugar. There's no catch. There's no caveat. There's no terms and conditions that's going to have you sell your soul. Just keeping it simple. I do not want to understate this, I guess. Let's restart that. I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart that this 24-team playoff for college football would ruin it. This show would be done. I would be done with the sport. And I understand a lot of people kind of make fun of the people in the group chat, or not the group chat, the comments. And it's always that one guy that goes, I'm done. I'm unsubscribing to you. This was my final straw. And a lot of people point and laugh at the kid because he's proclaiming a decision that really doesn't need to be proclaimed. It doesn't need to be discussed about, that I'm unsubscribing to this guy. But I feel like this is different. I truly would be done with college football if this is implemented and truly put forward. The 24-team playoff ruins everything that made college football so special. I will stand my ground and truly say that this is the best sport on the face of the earth. And I'll fight and die on that hill, regardless of how you feel. But the fact that we are going to go in a world in no less than 2029, as stated by, I believe it was Pete Thamel who broke this, he detailed and he got access to a document that was called the 24-team College Football Compromise, or the CFP Compromise, better said. Now, this is being driven by the Big Ten. That doesn't mean the SEC is out for no blame here. They are an accomplice just as bad as the Big Ten. But as of right now, the Big Ten is the boogeyman in this case. And truly, when you see the justification, in I can't express this enough. Go read the article. I understand why you guys want to watch videos. I'm not going to rinse and repeat every little point there, but look from the perspective of why would they do this? And it makes you feel disgusted. And I've wrote down some little nuggets so you don't have to go read it right now. One of the big things is the playoff or bust mentality that these coaches have to deal with. These coaches that get paid millions of dollars to build these programs, especially in the Big Ten, especially in the SEC, feel like it's a playoff or bust to detail what's going to be successful, what's going to be a failure for a college football program. Now, if you are a new college football fan, let me give you a little bit of a history lesson. It didn't always used to be like that. Now, obviously, with the Alabamas of the world, the Ohio States, the big national brands that you've come to know and love that are always in the national championship picture, of course, they have a higher standard than the rest of the field. But you can't look and tell me that South Carolina is having these same expectations as freaking Bama. That's just not the world we live in. But because of what has happened in the early 2010s when we implemented the 4-team playoff and it was presented to the college football public, the people that would be making the decisions on college football for years to come, we as a collective unit all got hyper fixated on making the college football playoff, which ruined bowl season. It outright ruined one of the best parts of the sport. Because I always will use the analogy, and not yet one person has been able to refute this idea that, for example, if you follow WWE, you have the undisputed championship at the tippy top. And then you have your mid-card belts. Or if you want to talk about UFC, we could do UFC if you don't want to talk about fake wrestling. There is prestige to getting the mid-card belts. Is there obviously the best belt in the entire stake of the business? Of course. But it doesn't mean that there isn't secondary and third prizes. This idea that in college football, I'm going to use a reference of Ricky Bobby. If you ain't first, you're last. That's the mentality that we have in college football right now with 130 plus teams. That's not the mentality that they have in college baseball. That's not the mentality that they have in college basketball. And if you come in my comments and you try to say, oh, it's going to be just like March Madness, get out of here with that. Truthfully, get out of here with that. It's not a real thing. College basketball, you can go get a future accountant that's going to be helping me with my State Farm insurance, and he could catch fire and shoot a bunch of three-pointers, and then they end up beating a team. You are not going to have that in football. You could point to App State beating Michigan. You could point to Boise State beating Oklahoma. These one-offs, these rare instances. We are talking about a tournament in which you may get those one-offs. You will not get a string of them. Because football is a physical sport with physicality, size, and strength. And at the end of the day, these players in the SEC and the Big Ten and the ACC and the Big 12 are just built different. I understand I'm going all over the place, but there's a lot of passion in my heart when we talk about this. And the fact that we are trying to now think of the coaches, because it's all of a sudden this playoff or bust mentality that you had set, is egregious to me. It's egregious. Let's also talk about the fact of what is the implementation plan of this. We currently stand at 12, and to be honest, I'm pretty fine with 12. I'm okay with 12. I was okay with 4. I would have preferred if we incrementally got to like 6 or 8. I thought that was the sweet spot. Am I still hurt that the college football bowl season is ruined and so many different, like, I guess, ramifications of implementing the playoff? Yeah, it still hurts, but I'm willing to compromise. And they are calling this 24-team playoff a compromise as if there's a 32-team version that we're whittling down to. The compromise is we're going to try to go to 16 because the SEC is okay with 16, but there's going to be a little caveat in there that we're just going to jump to 24 sub 2029. If we're going to go to 24, just go to 24. If you're going to break my heart, just go ahead and break my heart. If you're going to fire Mike Norvell, just go ahead and fire Mike Norvell. There's no point in just sitting around and waiting for things to happen just because it's going to make a conference feel better. And to walk you through, because clearly there's no point in talking about the 16-team playoff because we know what the future format's going to look, which would be 23 of the best teams plus one group of 6 team, no auto bids. What would be the point? Answer me this. without mentioning, oh, it's going to be like March Madness. Oh, it's going to be like X tournament and all these different things, because they're only going to continue to grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger. What is the point of the regular season for a Michigan? Hell, even in Oklahoma State, for the majority of the college football playoff era, I remember Josh Pate mentioned this, I believe 7+ times they would have made the college football playoff. Mike Gundy probably still has a job because of the allure and the notion that you have to make the college football playoff. There's no reward for winning the Cheez-It Bowl. There's no reward. We don't care about the Pop-Tart Bowl. But if you just got into that college football playoff, all of a sudden, your problems went away. I think it will also give a fake perception of success to so many different teams, because what was seen as such a prestigious award, very similar to like a New Year's Six Bowl, had started to whittle away, or the fact that the BCS Bowls were these grand achievements. Yes, you didn't make it to the national championship, but you still got to a BCS Bowl, and that was an award in its own right. That will all be gone. And frankly, it's already damn near gone. And when I say go read it, and I apologize, this is a rant. Chris, or anybody who's watching this is a rant. You could title it a rant, because it is. The piece that got me when talking about this 2014 playoff article was, finally, I'm getting the answer that I already knew existed, which was, this is just money driven. There would be 10 new games up for bid. There would be more college football games than just 10 added to the college football season with this new format. But there's already allocations of these media rights deals going to specific spots, still avoiding the NFL, by the way. It was detailed that they're still avoiding the NFL at all costs, like it's the damn plague, because we have no directive leadership of this goddamn sport. There's 10 games up for bid. That is why they're doing this. It is not for the playoff or bust pressure of the coaches, because the only reason why they are saying that, truthfully, is for the fact that they are giving out these crazy contract extensions and then having to fire the coach because they can't make it to the college football playoff because your expectations were too high. And now they're trying to get themselves out of financial debt because you're giving out these $70 million extensions. And then because of the turmoil that is roster construction in college football, they're trying to give themselves a scapegoat to say, well, our coach made it to the college football playoff 4 times. Yeah, he was the 23rd seed every single time. This allure of success. But the fact that there's 10 games up for bid, $10 million+, that's probably the smallest number I could think of that is up for bid, and they're going to shell out money for it. Because the truth and the honest to God truth of it that is so frustrating is once the ball is snapped, and once they are throwing the football, running the ball, no one cares at that point. I mean, frankly, once the national championship came in pass, and we're in the thick of the offseason, we're like just on the cusp of spring football, the numbers dip. People stop caring. And so this is when people should be focused, but they're focused on, I don't know, the NBA starting up, the All-Star game, MLB's coming around. The attention goes somewhere else. Meanwhile, the sport continues to be chipped away for another dollar sign, another digit, because there's no centralized leadership in the sport. I truly cannot express this enough. If you see this video and you've gotten to this point, and in your heart of heart, you truly believe this is a good thing for the sport, without saying, oh, it'll be like March Madness, oh, it'll be like, Omaha in the college baseball tournament, why is this a good thing? Why? Oh, also don't throw in it's more football. That's not how this works. Just because you get more of something that's a gluttonous idea, that you just get more of it, so why are you getting upset about it? That's not how this works. If I got to explain that, then probably shouldn't be commenting. This would ruin college football. This would become a NFL page. This would become a Seahawks page. This idea that I'd be talking about college football would be done. I was sick to my stomach more than the video on Twitter with the little monkey getting bullied. This made me feel worse. That's a lie. I do want to hear from your opinion though. Where am I wrong in feeling like this, truthfully? College football playoff, man. The allure of something that needs to be fixed, even though we've only been in this format for 2 years. Unfortunately, that creatine is not a great flavor. I got blueberry lemonade thinking it would be great, and it's painfully mid. Nonetheless, is it time for these college football programs to be panicking? It's panic meter time. Very simply put, you've seen it time and time again. I think what we should do to maybe mix it up is the threshold of hitting the panic button. Everyone assumes it has to be a 10. I think if you're in that 9 to 10 range, what's really the difference? I think if you're in the 8 to 10 range, really what's the difference? But we'll stick at 9 to 10. If you are hitting the panic button, you are at a 9 to 10. Anything sub 5, you're relatively cool. From about 6 to 8, you're sweating. You're getting a little nervous. And we're going to do this throughout the offseason, but I got about 4 programs for you that we're going to talk about. Clemson, number 1. Clemson is hitting the panic button. The panic meter is off the charts when we talk about Clemson and Dabo Swinney. And it is truly rooted in the fact of what a disappointment season was 2025. Honestly, the expectations are so low that they probably could go 8-4 with some, miraculous upset here and there. And people are going to look at Clemson and say, wow, what a turnaround. What a successful year. This idea that they're just bouncing back. Let's not forget the standard for Clemson should be up here. Emphasis on should. They should be up here, but it's just down here. And frankly, this is a program that is going to have a new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, new running backs, new offensive lineman. An entire defensive line is just going to get replaced, a corner, and many other players are going to be gone. That is all completely normal in the sport of college football. Go look at A&M. They're missing a ton of pieces, very similar in terms of just a long list of guys and a lot of productive veteran guys that are going to be leaving the building. The same exact reasons on why we were so excited about Clemson in 2025 are the same exact reasons why there's a lot of concern. What I was hoping to see is that Clemson was going to be very fruitful and a successful year, and that would build some momentum into what they could look like in 2026. But as they've, damn near exploded like a star on a grandest stage, damn near the most disappointing team. You could make an argument, the most disappointing team in all of college football. They don't have any momentum going into the next year. They are left with more questions than answers. And to bring back when talking about the A&M comparison, A&M can at least really feel confident that their talent acquisition is up to speed to catch up to the production that's leaving the building. You cannot feel the same way about Clemson. As you go look through the roster, you have a quarterback battle, but it's going to be Vizina. Spoiler alert to any Clemson fan that may not be aware. I believe Christopher Vizina is going to be the starting quarterback. You have your wide receivers returning. You have a change of the offensive coordinator, though I'm not a big fan of the hire. But the defense is going to replace a lot of talent. It's just too much turnover to feel like this team can automatically feel like they're ever going to get back to that mountaintop. And once again, it's like you're restarting the timer. We're restarting. It's going to be pushing back another 3 years before we're starting to look at them as not just a college football playoff team, because in the 12-team era, they can definitely get into the first round. But when can we expect them to ever get back to the national championship expectations that we had in 2025? Though they were completely wrong, I think based on the ingredients that we had going into the year, it was pretty fair to say that this was a national championship level team that was mismanaged, not coached to the capabilities that they needed to be. And I will even put my right hand up and say we overvalued some of the talent that was there. But as you could see when we talk about the NFL draft, there's so many Clemson players that are going to be drafted high. Peter Woods, TJ Parker, Avion Terrell, Cade Klubnik's going to get at least a draft pick somewhere. You sit here and you look around and you're like, man, all this NFL talent, and you had that bad of a season. I'm at a 9, which means hitting the panic meter. or panic button. Meter button, doesn't matter. Florida State's an easy 10 when we talk about the panic meter. They are smashing the panic button. Frankly, I don't even know if there's anyone at the wheel. They're kind of on cruise control, but it's not a Tesla, so it's doomed from the start. I talked about it earlier. If you're going to fire the coach, then fire the coach. This facade, this idea that you can, I don't know, give him one last gasp of air, even though you know what he is as a coach and you know what he could try to build. It's going to take much longer than a year. And you already had convinced yourself and said, yeah, we're going to fire him. Yeah, this is it. This is not good enough. Hold up. What's that price tag? Run those numbers back. What was the price tag? Give him one more year. And the difference between the 2 years is not substantial enough to say, yeah, he should wait. He should wait it out. That's not what we're looking at here. Florida State seems like a mismanaged program on every level. We talk about it when we were looking at the Lane Kiffin hire, and if we wind back a little bit and look at LSU, they had a question mark at the athletic director part, the president, all these different pieces were disconjointed, and you saw Lane as a guy that could plug in, but if you don't have alignment from every level, you're not going to build a competent program. And Florida State just seems like it is disjointed. You are pushing puzzle pieces that may fit, but we're going to try it anyways. And the biggest problem I have with keeping Mike Norvell isn't for the fact of the money piece, because it's not my money. It's truly rooted in the fact of the ramifications and the consequences that are going to follow delaying this a year. You have a staff that is basically dead on arrival. Very similar to Stanford when they had an interim coach that you knew was only going to be there for 1 year, but at least they had the hope and expectation that they were going to change hands. And it's not like they were coming off of a major contract with Frank Reich, if I remember correctly. He was the coach. You're not having the same level of expectations as Florida State. You have a change of the offense coordinator, change of the quarterback, all these different changes on the roster if we want to be really like tactical about it. But you have an uninspiring roster, a coaching staff that if I'm an OC and I know that I basically have 1 year of stepping in and trying to fix a bad roster, I'm not feeling good about it. I don't think as a player, although there's all this change of the transfer portal, why would I try to, go revive this program when I could try to be in a better situation virtually anywhere else? There's no other way to put it than Florida State should be panicking. I think they've been panicking. If the panic button hasn't been pressed, then I'll press it for them, because this is a program that feels dead in the water. And I think because they have made the decision of not firing Mike Norvell, they're going to be dead in the water longer if they had just bit the bullet and fired him right then and there this past coaching cycle. Alabama's a team that I was trying to think of teams that could fit in this mold of potentially panicking, or maybe it's overblown. And I was talking with some of the guys and they said, yeah, you should be talking about Alabama. To me, it's a 3 out of 10. Now, timeout. We're going to review that again. Alabama's a 3 out of 10 because of how I am looking at Kalen DeBoer. Not how the administration is looking at Kalen, not how the guys that are actually signing off his checks are looking at Kalen, the ones that were signing off the same checks to Nick Saban. I'm sure that their panic is a little bit higher than mine. But I'm looking through the vessel of Kalen DeBoer and really having a realistic approach to Alabama. They've had 1 year where they made the college football playoff. The other year, they were on the outside looking and obviously had an embarrassing loss to Oklahoma. But then the following year, they won a game in Norman, Oklahoma. Impressive. I think a lot of people still have the crimson-colored glasses of the 2010s, but also kind of forget about the fact that even with Nick Saban in the new era of college football, Alabama was steadily just dropping off in production and quality. But they have the idea of over a decade of success, and they are applying those expectations to a Kalen DeBoer, which frankly I think is unfair. I still believe he's a damn good coach. I still think he is a coach that is learning and trying to adapt and evolve. The biggest sticking point for him, I think, truly is consistency. the most consistent thing about these Alabama programs for the past 2 years, and frankly, even the year prior with Nick Saban, has been inconsistency, not having the discipline, a lot of, either they've been one of the more penalized teams. They've been one of those teams that if they're expected to win by 14, the other team's going to cover. But when they are backs against the wall, have to be in Athens, go beat Kirby Smart in Georgia, they're able to do it. There's just such a high and low with him that I understand that a lot of people can have the memories of the low kind of cloud the judgment of Kalen DeBoer. I still think he is a very good coach. Is he one of the best in the entire country? I'm talking like top 5. No, I'm not there yet. I definitely have, pulled back a little bit, but this is still a damn good football coach in my eyes that is in a situation that may have been seen as a perfect one for any football coach, but we really saw Alabama not become the team that is as much of a powerhouse on the NIL front. And I still think that's being developed. I still think they need a rushing attack. I still think they need a level of physicality to go win a championship. But I still think that they could get there, and I wouldn't be writing off Kalen DeBoer moving forward. Should Tennessee be panicking after the Joey Aguilar announcement? It has been decided that Joey Aguilar is not going to get that final year of eligibility. Now, pause. If you want to try to, make the comparison to Trinidad Chambliss getting his eligibility, two very different things. Chambliss had a red shirt that was very much ignored by the NCAA in their ruling and judgment. That's why it became a bigger thing than it needed to be. He's asking, I believe, for his 6th year of eligibility, where Aguilar's asking for his 8th. And Aguilar's only argument was rooted in the fact that he was going to get these JUCO years not be applied to his NCAA eligibility. And that's a much more difficult slippery slope, especially if you set that precedent for the rest of the nation in terms of all the JUCO players that are now playing Division I football. The question, if we bring it back to Tennessee, is now you are in, I believe, your 5th straight year of new quarterback play. So you've not been able to have any type of continuity, and that's not an uncommon thing in the sport, but it does present some challenges that I personally believe may limit the ceiling of Tennessee. And I think Oregon might be figuring that out. That's why I think Oregon's going to be really good with the continuity of Dante Moore for a 2nd year, because the best season of Bo Nix was the 2nd year of Oregon football. Obviously, Will Stein's not there. We could add all that context if we want. But Tennessee now is going to have another quarterback in George McIntyre or a true freshman step in, unless they magically get a transfer quarterback to step in just like they did last year. And I would feel good about it. And I do with Josh Heupel, of course. I would feel better if it was a veteran guy that's played some football. But at the end of the day, we've seen two very different sides of these first-year starters. The guys that have played a ton of football, I think Joe Milton obviously was not that great, but you had Hooker, you had Aguilar, and then Milton. Those 3 were the best performers in terms of quarterbacks in that system. But then you end up looking at Nico, and what's the difference between one group has seen a ton of football, and Nico was very much fresh into it. That's not to say McIntyre can't step in and play at a high level, but it may be more of a learning curve for a young quarterback to step into the system. And this is where I would say it's about a 6. I'm sweating a little bit. The reason why it's a 6 is because the rumblings between the fan base for the Volunteers has seemed to be a little bit more frustrated with a guy like Heupel. And so if they're entering the 2026 season with a little bit more pressure, a super young quarterback, I begin to get a little worried. You throw in the 9-game SEC schedule, 1 bye week. I start to get worried. That we'll make a whole video about Tennessee. This is more about just the panic meter, more about the Aguilar situation. But I am a little bit worried about Tennessee moving into 2026. They're once again replacing a couple guys in the defensive back room, a wide receiver who is very good in Chris Brazzell. They have good, talented guys. It's just going to be more difficult now. They don't have the continuity at the quarterback position. But nonetheless, we got people commenting from Turkey. We got people commenting from damn Turkey. Shout out to the people from Turkey. That's so cool. Sorry, I'm kind of at a loss for words. We got to get out of here, though. With that being said, have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Be safe if you're going out. please Uber. I always just have to mention that. So please have a fantastic rest of your week. And if you are seeing this after the fact, have a great start of your week if you're watching that. Nonetheless, I'm out of here. Peace.